Hey guys, what is going on? So I wanted to talk about my bulk progress thus far, as I've been bulking since the beginning of June. I've had some very impressive results, at least I'm very impressed with them. And I want to talk about everything that I'm doing from a, diet perspective, training perspective, and supplementation perspective, and everything that's kind of going into that, the little things that I'm doing throughout the day, and just go over all that. So before I get into that, I do have another channel that I've been posting to regularly that's more related to actually training and stuff like that. I'm talking about diet. I have actual lifts on there. So if you're interested in that, that link is going to be in the description. This channel has obviously been more centered around supplementation. I know that's what a lot of you are here for. But if you want some more insight on my training and stuff and me talking about my experience with a coach and everything like that, that's going to be over on that channel. And I'm probably going to be posting there more than I do here. But for the sake of this video and for this audience that I already have here, I'm just going to go over everything that I've done. So major thing is obviously the calorie surplus. That's what a bulk is all about. And my calorie surplus has been pretty aggressive. So there's that. There is the training perspective, and I will touch on all these things in more detail. In terms of me having a coach now, that's obviously a huge asset in terms of training progression. And then supplementation, nothing has really changed here outside of stuff that I've talked about quite a few times on this channel before. But I'm doing the Turkesterone and Ecdysterone stack. That is what I have been running for probably about a year or so. I guess a little bit less. I think I started doing this, the stack, back in October, November of last year, and I found that that's really what accelerated my results. So I'm sticking to that. It's been very good. Obviously, my progress has been very good thus far. So I have no reason to, come off of one or the other. I feel like that's a really potent stack for me. So that's what I've been doing from that perspective. And obviously I'm using all the same, I talk about the cortisol blocker. I talk about consistently using glycerol, staying hydrated with, potassium and salt and everything like that. These are things that I talk about very regularly. And if you want more information on that, I guess I can touch on those things, but just the same things that I've been consistently doing for the past year. So nothing really drastic has changed there. In terms of the diet, I think that's where I've really kind of changed some things up in terms of, one, I started this bulk at a much higher body weight. So I really just had to pound the calories much more. And I have used methods that I used towards the end of my bulk, pounding bagels and stuff like that to get a lot of carbs. And in this bulk in particular, I'm really utilizing milk to a very high degree. So that's been a very easy way to get calories in. And that has prevented me from eating a lot of just total garbage, like going out and getting fast food all the time, which is something that I used as a crutch during my last bulk. This bulk, I've been, much more, not to say that bagels and milk are necessarily quote unquote clean, but that has been, a couple things that I've kind of been much more consistent with in terms of being staples in my diet. And I've been getting, a ton of calories in doing that. And then in terms of my calorie surplus overall, I started the bulk at 242, and I'm currently 256. So I've gained 14 pounds over the last 9 weeks. So obviously that's a very fast rate of increase. That's a little bit faster than I was initially going for, but it seems like it's starting to slow down now. And I think it's just because I had found such convenient options in terms of getting calories in via the bagels, via the milk, stuff like that. So now that I am kind of getting back up to that higher body weight where I had a little bit more trouble gaining size in the past, now it's starting to slow down. So, I'm probably going to see that rate of progress slow down quite a bit. And hopefully I can kind of milk that out for a longer period of time without having to go towards the super calorie dense options that I abused in my last bulk. So obviously calorie surplus has been there from the start. I think that's really the main thing that's driving growth in general, just because that's how you grow, is by bulking. And then in terms of my training, so this is where I want to spend a little bit more of the bulk of the video on. So, my training has been very kind of different. I'm under a coach. I'm doing totally different things. I'm doing way less volume. I'm doing less frequency. I'm not really focusing on anything like bench press or anything like that. It's much more so I've been progressing very consistently on my lower body movements. I've been squatting, doing RDLs consistently. And while I'm still doing Larson press and incline bench, those are just once a week for both of those. I'm more so focusing on arm growth and hypertrophy and just overall getting bigger. So training has been very, very different. Again, my other channel, I go in depth on, what has been happening there. But a lot of the size that I've gained has been in areas that aren't necessarily like the mirror muscles as much. So, I'm going to throw up some pictures here to kind of show the differences between my physique over, certain periods of time. And one thing I do want to stress before I show these is that a lot of the size that I've gained on this bulk and a lot of the size that I've been gaining in the past like year or so is not necessarily represented in these shots. And I just kind of use these to show like what has my leanness been over the course of this. Because if you look and you're like, okay, this is the ab definition, this is how much fat you can see like on my love handles and stuff like that, it kind of shows like, okay, what's my body fat percentage? So I just kind of try and take them in like similar lighting, similar pose, everything like that, to just kind of show leanness. But obviously if I'm building a lot of muscle in like my quads, which has been what's happening recently, or my back or my triceps or any of these things that have really been growing for me, this doesn't necessarily show it that well. So maybe I'm going to have to start doing some different poses. But again, these have always just been about consistency and not trying to manipulate angles or poses or anything like that, because I feel like there's already so many variables. I'm simply just trying to track my body fat. But anyway, so this picture here, this is, roughly where I was at the start of my bulk, maybe around 15% body fat. I don't try and get too into the body fat percentage just because it's all an estimate, especially when you get at these higher body fat percentages, it starts to become less and less accurate. And for somebody like me being almost 260 pounds now, 1% difference is almost a 3-pound difference in terms of fat. So if I were to say I was 18% instead of 19, well, that could be the difference between 3 pounds of fat or 3 pounds of muscle or whatever. So that can get a little excessive for somebody of my size. And again, they're all estimates anyway. So I don't really depend on body fat percentages until I get leaner. And considering this bulk, I didn't even start very lean. I'm just not even really worrying about it. I might do a scan here or there just for, the sake of it. But I don't think that they're necessarily all that accurate in terms of like, this needs to be the direction that I'm heading in based on this scan. I don't think that's the way to go about it. But anyway, this, maybe 15% body fat. Again, keep in mind, I'm, over 240 pounds here. So different body fat percentages look different on different people. That's just an estimate at the end of the day. And then here we go. This is me at 256. This was, I'm not sure the day, maybe within the last week or something like that. So I'm currently about 256 as well. And if you look between these pictures, I think that, in my opinion, my abs are actually better in the second picture. And that's one thing that I want to emphasize is I have been doing ab training kind of for the first time. Obviously, I've done it in the past, but I've never consistently done it, like in recent years at the very least. So having better ab definition when I'm 14 pounds heavier seems to be pretty cool. And overall, I just think like, yes, I'm a higher body fat percentage. I think people might look at these pictures and think I haven't added that much fat, but I think it has been a decent amount. That being said, I would say that I'm probably still under 20% body fat in this 256 picture. So if I'm like 19% here, that's going to be the highest lean body mass that I've ever had, which I think is probably true. I think I'm probably the most muscle that I've ever had, and I'm only a little bit over 2 months into the bulk. So I still have a lot of time. Obviously I spent some of that time gaining back a little bit of that muscle that I lost during my cut, because it was just such an aggressive cut. I was cutting about 2,000 calories a day. So obviously not the most anabolic environment possible. I also was cycling off of Turkesterone and Ecdysterone, which, I think that had at least some impact in terms of my training performance and being able to retain some muscle. So obviously now that I'm back on those, now that I'm back on the calories, I can really push into new levels of mass that I've never seen before. But I would say even already in this bulk, highest lean body mass that I've ever had, in my opinion. In comparison, this is a picture from when I was 263. This is a different lighting scenario, so I wouldn't, hold this, like, I wouldn't say that this is like the craziest thing ever, because I think I look dramatically fatter in this picture when I'm only, 7 pounds heavier, and much deeper into a cut and stuff like that. So I would say I am significantly leaner at 256 than I am here, but that's obviously to be expected, because that's a difference in in quite a few pounds, obviously like 7 pounds there. But at the end of the day, I do think that living in my body and understanding how I have kind of looked at different weights, and obviously I've been 256 in the past during my last bulk as well. I feel like I'm quite a bit leaner. I'm actually surprised at how much of a difference in terms of leanness that I, feel and look and everything. at different body weights and different body fat percentages and stuff like that. So again, I think I've actually added some pretty quality mass so far over the course of this bulk. And, some of those areas are areas that I haven't hit quite as hard in the past. So for me, like I'm really hammering legs, and, my squat numbers have gone up pretty substantially. So, I've added like 70, 80, 90 pounds to, what I would say, my working sets of squats from the start of this bulk, which is insane. Now, obviously I was coming off of a cut. I wasn't necessarily super into like practicing my squats back then. But I mean, I'm hitting these numbers that I didn't think that I'd be able to hit anytime soon. And I'm already hitting them just, a couple months in. So I think I put on a decent amount of size on my legs. Obviously, my back is not necessarily something you can see too much from like these pictures. My triceps, I think, have made significant jumps and everything like that. Again, I think my abs are a little bit blockier, a little bit more muscular now that I'm training them. So, I don't think that pictures are necessarily too representative of what's going on with my body. I don't think body fat percentage is necessarily the best way to do it either until, eventually I'll cut down and then we can compare apples to apples from like when I was, actually lean. And then if in the future, if I become actually lean, we can compare apples to apples. But with all these variables in terms of glycogen, carbs, hydration, lighting angles, all this stuff, I just don't think it's worth it to go off of that kind of stuff as of right now, but it's something that I will utilize in the future. But my strength numbers have been going up in pretty much every lift I've been doing, other than bench press has not really been going up, just because I'm not really emphasizing that. I'm doing like, I'm not even doing like flat bench press really. I'm just doing like variations. And those have been going up now, so that's pretty good. But I do not have the level of dedication with bench press now that I used to. So my frequency isn't there. My volume isn't there. And again, we're emphasizing other things right now, and I'm just trying to put on size. And I think I am putting on size. So if that means that my bench press isn't at all-time highs right now, it's fine by me. But everything else is just kind of going up really, really aggressively. And I'm very, very happy with it. And I just kind of want to give that update in terms of, like calorie surplus is super important, guys. And spending a lot of time in that environment is going to allow you to grow. Having a plan, this is something that I have been hypocritical on in the past. I mean, I never really emphasized having a plan in the past. But now that I have one, now that I have a coach, I think it's been very beneficial for me in kind of attacking areas that I didn't before in terms of getting adequate rest. And I've talked about my style of training in the past being nucleus overload. And one aspect of that is that you gain these myonuclei to be able to grow more easily in the future. So now that my volume is down, my frequency is down, I think I'm growing at an optimal rate because I'm getting maximum recovery. But then my minimum effective volume, I think, has actually, gone down. So I can actually manage to grow on a much lower stimulus than what I was used to. So I think that plays a role. I think, my coach obviously has a good plan as well. So all those things combined, I think, are really just kind of coming together and allowing me to really hit those numbers. And obviously, with supplementation, I think that's been a big help as well. And I've talked about, my protocol with that, and everything that I've talked about in this channel in the past, I think has really accelerated my gains as well. So to see, to be as advanced as I am in terms of strength and just overall body mass and stuff like that, and to just see these like gains that almost feel like newbie gains, it's crazy. And I think it's just a combination of nailing everything, nailing my nutrition, at least the way that I perceive it in terms of, calorie surplus, my training, just being really focused with that, my recovery, supplementation, having everything dialed in, that's really key. And I think a lot of people will use something as a crutch. Maybe they use supplements, but their diet isn't where it needs to be, or maybe they're just not even bulking, which is, ridiculous if you're trying to grow, or maybe your training isn't where it needs to be. Like having all these things dialed in, and being able to just grow at the rate that I am in terms of size and strength, and just feeling like I'm like new to the gym again is such an amazing feeling. And I just kind of wanted to stress that, like people, over time they get more and more invested in this kind of stuff. But some people think they're doing everything they can, and they're just not. I think I was one of those guys who thought like, oh, I'm approaching my natty limit, and I just was not even close, and that's been very evident from what I've been doing over the past couple years. And I literally laugh at that old version of myself because there's just so many other things that I could have been doing. So now that I'm really kind of dialed in on a lot of these things, I just really just kind of want to share that message, as well as just giving updates in general on my progress. A lot of people say that, my progress has inspired them to take things more seriously or try different methods. And that really makes me feel good that people are seeing me as an inspiration. So just putting this out there for people who, need to hear it, want to hear it, whatever. But yeah, I'm having a great time training, making a lot of progress, and that's been my update. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I'll keep you updated, and I'll talk to you soon.